Vismitre Viparitam Syat Sri Chaitanyam Namamitam. Things that are very difficult to do become easy to execute if one somehow or other simply remembers Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. But if one does not remember him, even easy things become very difficult. To this, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, I offer my respectful obeisances. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayana Namaskrityam Naram Chaiva Narotamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jaya Mudirayet. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the very means of conquest, one should offer respectful obeisances unto the personality of Godhead, Narayana, unto Narayan Rishi, the supermost human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author. Shrinvatam Swakata Krishna Punya Shravana Kirtana Hridyanta Stohya Badrani Vidunoti Sushitsatam. Shri Krishna, the personality of Godhead, who is the Paramatma, super soul in everyone's heart, and the benefactor of the truthful devotee, cleanses desire for material enjoyment from the heart of the devotee who has developed the urge to hear his message, which are in themselves virtuous when properly heard and chanted. Nashta prayeshwa badreshu nityam bhagavata sevaya bhagavati utama shloke bhaktir bhavati naishtiki. By regular attendance in classes on the Bhagavatam and by rendering of service to the pure devotee, all that is troublesome to the heart is almost completely destroyed, and loving service unto the personality of Godhead, who is praised with transcendental songs, is established as an irrevocable fact. We're reading from the Srimad Bhagavatam, first canto, Creation, chapter 10, Departure of Lord Krishna for Dwarka, text 25. I'll read it 3 times. Let's see if then you can repeat. Yadahi yadarme. Let me get the meter. Yadahi yadarmena tamodiyo nripa jivanti tatraishahi satvata kila tate bhagam satyamritam dayam yasho bhavaya rupani dadad yuge yuge. Yada yadarmena tamodiyo nripa jivanti tatraishahi satvata kila tate bhagam satyamritam dayam yasho bhavaya rupani dadad yuge yuge.
Prabhu, you read only 2 times. Can you read one more time?
Sure. Thank you, Mataji.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Yada yadarmena tamodiyo nripa jivanti tatraishahi satvata kila tate bhagam satyamritam dayam yasho bhavaya rupani dadad yuge yuge.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Thank you so much for the wonderful recitation. Yada hi adharmena tamodiyo nrupa jivanti tatraisahi satvatah kila datte bhagam satyamrutam dayam yaso bhavaya rupani dadad yuge yuge. Thank you, Prabhuji.
Thank you, Mataji.
Dahitarmena tamodiya nripa jivanti tatraisha hi satvatah kila tatte bhagam satyamritam dayamisho bhavaya rupani dadad yuge yuge. Thank you.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Yada hi adharmena tamodiyo nripa jivanti tatraisahi satvata kila tate bhagam satyamritam dayam ashyasho bhavaya rupani dadad yuge yuge. Thank you, Prabhuji.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Okay. The word for word, yada, whenever, he assuredly, adharmena, against the principles of God's will, tamadiya, persons in the lowest material modes, nripaha, kings and administrators, jivanti, live like animals, tatra, thereupon, irsha, he, only, satvataha, transcendental, kila, certainly, dhatte, is manifested, bhagam, supreme power, satyam, truth, ritam, positiveness, dayam, mercy, yashaha, wonderful activities, bhavaya, for the maintenance, rupani, in various forms, dadat, manifested, yuge, different periods, yuge, and ages. Translation and purport given by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Whenever there are kings and administrators living like animals in the lowest modes of existence, the Lord, in His transcendental form, manifests His supreme power, the truth positive, shows special mercy to the faithful, performs wonderful activities, and manifests various transcendental forms as is necessary in different periods and ages. Purport. As mentioned above, the cosmic creation is the property of the Supreme Lord. This is the basic philosophy of Ishopanishad. Everything is the property of the Supreme Being. No one should encroach upon the property of the Supreme Lord. One should accept only what is kindly awarded by Him. Therefore, the earth or any other planet or universe is the absolute property of the Lord. The living beings are certainly His parts and parcels, or sons, and thus every one of them has the right to live at the mercy of the Lord to execute His prescribed work. No one, therefore, can encroach upon the right of another individual man, woman, or animal without being so sanctioned by the Lord. The king or the administrator is the representative of the Lord to look after the management of the Lord's will. He must therefore be a recognized person like Maharaj Yudhishthir or Parikshit. Such kings have full responsibility and knowledge from authorities about the administration of the world. But at times, due to the influence of the ignorance mode of material nature, tamogun, the lowest of the material modes, kings and administrators come into power without knowledge and responsibility. Such foolish administrators live like animals for the sake of their own personal interest. The result is that the whole atmosphere becomes surcharged with anarchy and vicious elements. Nepotism, bribery, cheating, aggression, and therefore famine, epidemic, war, and similar other disturbing features become prominent in human society. And the devotees of the Lord or the faithful are persecuted by all means. All these symptoms indicate the time of an incarnation of the Lord to reestablish the principles of religion and to vanquish the maladministrators. This is also confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita. The Lord then appears in His transcendental form without any tinge of material qualities. He descends just to keep the state of His creation in a normal condition. The normal condition is that the Lord has provided each and every planet with all the needs of the native living beings. They can happily live and execute their predestined occupations to attain salvation at the end, following the rules and regulations mentioned in the revealed scriptures. The material world is created to satisfy the whims of the Nitya Bhada, or everlasting conditioned souls, just as naughty boys are provided with playing cradles. Otherwise, there was no need of the material world. But when they become intoxicated with the power of material science to exploit the resources unlawfully without the sanction of the Lord, and that also only for sense gratification, there is necessity of the Lord's incarnation to chastise the rebellious and to protect the faithful. When he descends, he exhibits superhuman acts just to prove his supreme right. And materialists like Ravan, Hiranyakashipu, and Kamsa are sufficiently punished. He acts in a manner which no one can imitate. For example, the Lord, when he appeared as Rama, bridged the Indian Ocean. When he appeared as Krishna, from his very childhood, he showed superhuman activities by killing Putana, Agasura, Shakatasura, Kaliya, etc. And then his maternal uncle Kamsa. When he was at Dwarka, he married 16,108 queens, and all of them were blessed with a sufficient number of children. The sum total of his personal family members amounted to about 100,000, popularly known as the Yadu Vamsha. And again, during his lifetime, he managed to vanquish them all. He is famous as the Govardhan Dhari Hari because he lifted, at the age of only 7, the hill known as Govardhan. The Lord killed many undesirable kings in his time, and as Kshatriya, he fought chivalrously. He is famous as the Asamordhva, unparalleled. No one is equal to or greater than him. Jai. I'll read the Sanskrit and the verse again. Yada yadarminatamodio nripa jivanti tatresha hi satvata kila tatte bhagam satyamritam dayam yasho pavaya rupanidadad yuge yuge. Whenever there are kings and administrators living like animals in the lowest modes of existence, the Lord in his transcendental form manifests his supreme power, the truth positive, shows special mercy to the faithful, performs wonderful activities, and manifests various transcendental forms as is necessary in different periods and ages. Pancha kalpa terubhyascha kripa sindhubhya cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Thank you. Thank you all for giving me a chance to read. In his translation to the verse, Srila Prabhupada translates the word Satyam Ritam as a truth, the truth positive. Satyam, of course, means truth. But this stands in opposition to, because he cited Ishopanishad, Prabhupada mentions in the Sri Shopanishad the idea of neti neti, which is that some people try to understand what the truth is by eliminating what the truth is not. So when you want to find something that's sat or eternal, you want to find something that exists in all 3 phases of time. So, like a rosebud or a butterfly that only exists these, or like dust in the wind, or ice or fire, or all these natural elements only exist in certain phases of time and go through a transformation. So you say na eti or neti, not this or not this or not this. But Krishna is different from these conceptions of truth because he fully presents himself in truth positive. He's not, he's not the negation of or he's not, truth by negating what's false. He's the truth by establishing himself in person. That's a very beautiful phrase, Satyamritam, the truth positive. And he capitalizes it too. So it's not a relative truth, and it's not a relative example of something that positively exists, but it's the capital T truth and the capital P positive. I thought that was something nice to notice. So Prabhupada mentions a few things that he does. Well, let's backtrack just to contextualize again. We're reading the prayers of the devotees. If we go back a few verses, which was a few weeks, we remember the famous verse that it was being heard. This is text 19. That it was being heard here and there, that the benedictions paid to Krishna were neither befitting nor unbefitting, because they were all for the absolute. And then this is a beautiful verse, text 20, that absorbed in the thought of the transcendental qualities of the Lord, who is sung in select poetry, the ladies on the roofs of the houses of Hastinapura began to talk of him. This talk was more attractive than the hymns of the Vedas. So this is who we're hearing speak now. So that and their glorifications, which were neither befitting nor unbefitting, began on text 21. So we're now a few verses in. So that's just to contextualize what's happening. Krishna is leaving, and the ladies that love him are looking at him from the roofs and speaking about these things. And what they're saying is more attractive than the hymns of the Vedas. When we say who is it more attractive to, it's absolutely more attractive to Krishna, and it's more attractive to us. The hymns of the Vedas are sometimes difficult to understand, but poetry from one soul about another, and that one soul being in love, is easier to understand than technical language. But still, there's so much somewhat technicality imbued in this. For example, truth positive. That's a little bit of technicality, but so that's just the context. So what they were saying here is four things: that he manifests his supreme power, he shows special mercy to the faithful, he performs three things, and he performs wonderful activities and manifests various transcendental forms as is necessary in different periods and ages. So this is reminiscent of verse 4.7 in Bhagavad Gita, where Krishna says, Yada yada hi dharmasya glanir bhavatir bharata abhyutanam adharmasya tadatmanam shujamyaham. I think in the next verse, 4.8, Krishna actually uses the words yuge yuge. Yeah, he ends in dharma samstapanatraya sambhavami yuge yuge. This verse ends in bhavaya rupami dadat yuge yuge. So over and over again, repetitively, always, again and again. Like in English, we say again and again to signify that kind of like recursive loop. Krishna is saying, or the devotees are saying, yuge yuge. The first principle that Srila Prabhupada mentions is in the Sri Shapanishad, which is verse 1 of the Sri Shapanishad. It mentions that Krishna, or the Supreme Person, it controls everything. Ishavasyam idam sarvam yat kincha jagatyam jagat tena tyaktena bunjita madgridha kasya svidanam. Just a reminder, in mantra 1 of the Sri Shapanishad, it's written that everything animate or inanimate that is within the universe is controlled and owned by the Lord. One should therefore accept only those things necessary for himself which are set aside as his quota, and one should not accept other things, knowing well to whom they belong. So this is very lofty knowledge. To know and to understand just what's contained in this verse requires a lot of other subordinate pieces of knowledge. It requires that you recognize yourself as a conscious being distinct from other people, which is something that, children, for example, can't do yet. It requires that you recognize that among this, like on this terrestrial plane, there's one type of consciousness, but then there's another supreme consciousness, which would be the Isha. And the first word says Isha Vasyam, by the Lord, everything is controlled. So it requires, not only, am I, like a conscious being, but there's another conscious being above me. And all of these things that I see are controlled by that supreme person. And then it also, there's also a knowledge of sense control that's required here, because the verse says that one should not accept, or one should not take things that belong to other people. So there's also a sense of a discipline of being able to control the senses that should be known by a person that understands this verse. And that is what a king or an administrator should know. These are the qualifications. So the king or administrator should recognize that they're conscious as distinguished from a body. They should recognize that there's, everyone else is also a conscious being, that they're animating these bodies, and that above all of these conscious beings, there's a supreme conscious being, and that these things aren't, the world as we see it isn't a random occurrence, but it's planned, and there's a quota. So that that implies that, if a certain behavior is executed, like if we behave in a certain way, that there's a mechanism in place that we should receive exactly what we need. So there's like an acceptance of a mechanic of the universe, or like the mechanics of how things function. But this verse is saying that when there are kings and administrators that live like animals, which implies that there is no sense control, that there is no recognizing my quota and the quota of another. There is no, discipline in not taking things that belong to other people. There might not even be a recognition of a supreme being above us. And all of the problems subsequent to that, which Prabhupada mentions, and it's like almost word for word what's happening. Nepotism, and in case you don't know, because that's not a common word, it means like choosing people not based on qualification but on familial relationships. We see that happening with the caste Goswamis, right? Like a Swami is supposed to be a person based on their qualification, but you get in some instances in the world, people just like give the title of Goswami as a hereditary kind of inheritance. And that happens everywhere. It doesn't only happen, in spiritual circles, but it happens in administrative circles, and it happens everywhere. Like it happens in businesses and family businesses, that you may have like a child or a family member that's not qualified, but they're your living family member. So, they get to take control. So all of these things where it's showing that like the principle that's being violated is that you're not if you're a person who's like engaging in nepotistic behavior, that you don't really care about the people that it's going to affect. You only care about keeping power concentrated, or benefiting yourself, not really caring about other people. Bribery, so you pay someone to look the other way, or cheating, aggression, famine, like how much food is being wasted, and how many people are going hungry today, and how much epidemic and war is there because of improper administration. So these devotees are saying that whenever that situation happens, that's when Krishna, the Lord in his transcendental form, manifests his supreme power. And this is a point that's mentioned so much, so it's worth us just thinking about what it means that Krishna, who's the object of our meditation, and the goal of a happy life is meeting someone as wonderful as Krishna. Or the goal of a happy life like part of a happy life is sharing time with someone. There's a movie, Into the Wild, where the main character, the protagonist, who inherited a lot of money and had a great education lined up for him, like decided to go out and live in the wilderness and like live life kind of like Henry David Thoreau. Didn't want to be shackled down by the machinations of the fast moving industrial world, and wanted to go back to nature. Thoreau, by the way, was inspired by like the Bhagavad Gita and the ascetics and the spiritualists from the East. And similarly, this Christopher McCandless was drawn to go back to nature, to experience something real, and to experience something sublime. And at the end of his life, he died alone, but before dying, he had this epiphany. He said that happiness is only real when it's shared. So he realized at the end, this person that had everything and gave it up to live a noble and virtuous life, realized that even being virtuous and even trying to be noble and even trying to experience the natural world doesn't count for so much if there's not someone to exchange something with. And that's really what like bhakti is all about. Bhakti is all about meeting that person that you can really exchange something with. So we have everything in the world already. We have like decent bodies, for all that we make fun of it, like they're not that bad. We've got these really nice conveyances, like all these modern facilities in the world, and we can drive wherever we want to go, and watch movies on demand, and have ad blockers on our computer so we don't have to deal with people selling us stuff all the time. But if we don't have someone to joke with, if we don't have someone to share our experiences of how great that is, it's almost useless, because it's like it dies within us. Like emotions exist to be exchanged. Everything exists to be exchanged. That's the principle in the Nectar of Instruction, where Srila Rupa Goswami says that the 6 expressions of love all have to do with exchange, either exchanging words or exchanging feelings, exchanging food, exchanging presence. It's all about trade and rasa, and the feeling that comes out of that exchange, which is rasa. So why that's important is because kings and administrators give the example to everyone of how things should be. Like we grow up to be like our parents, and kings and administrators are like the parents of the whole world. It's a huge responsibility. That's why Brahma is not a common soul. And Krishna cares so much about that role of Brahma, that if there isn't a soul that's qualified to be a parent of the whole universe, Pitamaha, a great grandfather of the whole universe, he does it himself. It's not like he lets this happen on a cosmic scale. He lets bad administration happen on a very small scale, because in the multiverse and how many universes there are and how many planets there are, like Earth, this is not so much of a ripple effect that it'll destroy everything. Plus, it gives his devotees an opportunity to pray for him. It gave Advaita Acharya an opportunity to pray for him and to develop more fervor for seeing him. And it gives Krishna an opportunity to play and to appear and to protect his devotees and destroy the miscreants. So it's important. These things are really important. And so why I went into that was Krishna is described as the supreme enjoyer. Now I can tell you that like I enjoy when I'm playing a video game, for example, and if there's a dirty dish that I know, like for example, if there's an orange peel, I know that fruit flies are impossible to get rid of. And I know that if I leave an orange peel in the sink for longer than like an hour or two, somehow or other in my airtight apartment, a fruit fly will make it to there and like have 1,000 kids. Now, when I'm enjoying the video game, like I don't care about the discomfort that like future Donna is going to experience. So I just like keep playing and I deal with the fruit flies later. For the record, I don't kill them. I just like capture them in cups and release them, obviously. But Krishna, in his like incomparably better enjoyment in Goloka Vrindavan, does care about the future enjoyment of the souls in this planet. And like, when you consider the scale of what we are, like when you look at that wonderful map that shows, where Earth is within the Garbhodaka ocean, which is just one universe next to many universes, that exist within one breath of Mahavishnu, and that one breath of Mahavishnu adds up to like trillions of years. But Krishna still cares. He cares enough to appear on every single Earth, yuge, again and again, in every single universe, all the time. And we learn from the Bhagavatam, or we learn from the Gita, that he does it also in all these different forms. Like he doesn't only appear on this terrestrial plane, he appears in animal bodies and in the animal kingdom and in the celestials as well. So today it hit me different. I guess I hadn't thought about it before, but this yuge and whenever and wherever, it really, hit me differently, that it conveys a little bit of Krishna's concern, just how concerned he is, that it's really happening everywhere and wherever. Now, the question that we could ask is, okay, Prabhupada, Dana, like you're reading this and basically you could check off everything. There's nepotism, bribery, cheating, aggression. So where's Krishna? And we know where Krishna is. Krishna is in the form of his holy name, and Krishna is represented in his devotees. He says, Aham Japa Yagyosmin, that I am the austerity or the sacrifice of the holy names, of chanting Japa. Krishna tells us that, he is the ability in people of purifying elements. He's wind. He's the fire of digestion. So Krishna is really everywhere. But he respects our free will. There's one verse in the Bhagavad Gita that Prabhupada comments, and I forget where it is right now. The devotees remember, you could say, but it's a very special verse where Prabhupada mentions that Krishna respects our free will, but the devotees are actually more merciful to Krishna because they understand the Lord's purpose. And so that ties into a little bit of why we don't see Krishna, is because, Krishna and the disciplic succession is giving us a chance to do something, to practice some service. Like Krishna could do all these things if he wanted, but we're being given a chance to have our own prayer of being servants answered. Again, man proposes and God disposes. So we and also God helps those who help themselves. So we're being given a chance to manifest this compassionate nature of Krishna on earth right now. And for all the people having kids and just also being examples, we're the next kings and administrators are being raised right now. Biden was a kid once, and Zelensky was a kid once, and Putin was a kid once. So it's just, that's what we're being given a chance to do. We're being given a chance to be first kings and administrators of our own bodies and of our own desires, and then kings and administrators of our houses and maybe in our societies, and it tears up that way. So that was basically just what we were just talked about, was like the principle of how important kings and administrators are. We tied it into what Srila Prabhupada mentioned in the Sri Shapanishad, which is the first verse, what the importance was. And we tied it all in a bow by seeing that Krishna caring about something, so small as a king and administrator on any one of these small planets is an expression of his mercy. And maybe that's what the devotees are talking about when they're mentioning this, because maybe they don't care about, we know that because they live in Dwarka, they're interested in Krishna, some majestic feature, but this is something that they find very attractive about him, that he's so good at being a king. He cares so much about his subjects. We get information from Krishna book and the Bhagavatam, what what Krishna's daily activities were, how he woke up early and he offered homage to his forefathers, and he meditated on himself, and then he went out and he looked at his subjects, and he talked to them, and he cared about what was happening in all the different quarters of Dwarka. I would like just to take a little moment because I rambled for a little longer, and I thought, because today's Mother's Day, I'd like to read something that Srila Prabhupada wrote in the beginning, in his introduction to Sri Shapanishad, which is one of the first things that I ever read, was Srila Prabhupada's Sri Shapanishad. And I remember that this introduction changed my life. So we're actually 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 paragraphs in. Srila Prabhupada writes that the Vedas are not compilations of human knowledge. Vedic knowledge comes from the spiritual world, from Lord Krishna. Another name for the Vedas is Shruti. Shruti refers to that knowledge which is acquired by hearing. It is not experimental knowledge. Shruti is to be considered like a mother. We take so much knowledge from our mother. For example, if you want to know who your father is, who can answer you? Your mother. If the mother says, "Here is your father," you have to accept it. It is not possible to experiment to find out whether he is your father. Similarly, if you want to know something beyond your experience, beyond your experimental knowledge, beyond the activities of the senses, then you have to accept the Vedas. There is no question of experimenting. It has already been experimented. It is already settled. The version of the mother, for instance, has to be accepted as truth. There is no other way. The Vedas are considered to be the mother, and Brahma is the grandfather, the forefather, because he was the first to be instructed in the Vedic knowledge. In the beginning, the first living creature was Brahma. He received this Vedic knowledge and imparted it to Narada and other disciples and sons, and they also distributed it to their disciples. In this way, the Vedic knowledge comes down by disciplic succession. It is also confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita that Vedic knowledge is understood in this way. If you make experimental endeavor, you come to the same conclusion, but just to save time, you should accept. If you want to know who your father is, and if you accept your mother as the authority, then whatever she says can be accepted without argument. So I just wanted to take this moment to draw a parallel between Srimad Bhagavatam being the ripened fruit of all knowledge, of all Vedic literature, and Shruti being representative of our mother, of a mother, because it's through Shruti that we learn who Aham Bija Pratapita is, how we learn who the seed-giving father is. So this should be, this is a nice opportunity to see that however much we appreciate Srimad Bhagavatam and Shruti for teaching us who Krishna is, how much more to appreciate our mother who, gave us, her own blood and her own body to produce this form that we have. Mother Durga is seen as the mother of all the cosmos. It's all of this is, her property. Well, ultimately Krishna's property, but she's in control of this. And our mother who, gave us our name, encouraged us in our spiritual practice if we were fortunate, and is always encouraging. Prabhupada, one of the most famous things that Prabhupada said about mothers is that the closest love, the closest that you can get to transcendental love on earth is a mother's love for a child. So that's a really good indication of how Krishna loves us in a very forgiving way, in a very tender way, and in a very unrequited way. Actually, there's a very nice word there's a very nice name for Krishna that the Muslims use, which is Al-Rahman, which sounds a lot like Rama or Radha Raman, but Al-Rahman. And I heard one of a Muslim devotee describe it, and he described it. I'm paraphrasing it, but he said, there's a special word for when a child is in the womb, and it's a word that starts with R. I won't try to repeat it, but it says that the child is not aware of who the mother is, and the child, kicks and nudges and feels very uncomfortable inside the womb, and has no idea about the world outside. But that mother does know that child already. And that mother already loves the child. And so that name, Al-Rahman, is indicative of God as he cares for somebody that does not know who they are, but loves them regardless of them not knowing. So that's a very beautiful name. The only reason why I know that is because His Holiness Bhakti Tirtha Swami cited the verse that name of God is on. The verse says, I call him Allah, or he says, you may call him Allah or Al-Rahman, call him by whatever name you like, but know that all names of God are beautiful. So those are some meditations on today. Happy Mother's Day. Thank you for giving me a chance to read, and I'll, if I made any mistakes, please forgive me. I am actually an unqualified speaker and reader of the Bhagavatam. But if anything worked out, it really is because of Srila Prabhupada and because of your kindness to me and my spiritual teachers. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Dhanyavad Pranam, Jai Srila Prabhupada. Yeah, I always like your style of, presenting the narrations of Srimad Bhagavatam, Prabhuji. You have a unique style of, presenting the, discourse every time. So thank you so much for the wonderful explanations, Prabhu. And also reminded about the Mother's Day today. So thank you so much for that, Prabhuji. And you have read from what Srila Prabhupada has said about the Vedas as mother, Shruti and Shruti. So thank you so much, Prabhu, for sharing that. It was very nice to hear from you. Prabhu, I have a question. Is it okay to ask, Prabhu?
Sure, we are in the assembly of wonderful devotees.
So, Prabhu, I'm trying to understand the second paragraph of the purport of Srimad Bhagavatam, today's verse, Prabhu, what you have read. I don't understand. Usually, the Lord appears, right? Yuge. You have explained it very nicely by quoting the 4.7 verse also in Srimad Bhagavad Gita. So, Prabhu, when Lord appears, that is understandable. But he created this material world, right? So, in the fourth line of the second paragraph, the purport is saying that the material world is created to satisfy the whims of the Nitya Baddha, or everlasting conditioned souls, just as naughty boys are provided with playing cradles. Otherwise, there was no need of material world. Okay. But when they become intoxicated with the power of material science to exploit the resources unlawfully without the sanction of the Lord, and that also only for sense gratification, there is necessity of the Lord's incarnation, okay, to chastise the rebellious and to protect the faithful. So, Prabhu, my question is, I'm trying to understand this. We are Nityabaddhas, basically, okay? For this material world itself is created for the souls like Nityabaddhas only, who are averse to the Lord, even when it started not in the material world, basically. It started in the spiritual world only. We have become averse to Krishna. We have developed animosity towards Krishna. We have become envious towards Krishna. In that case, Krishna, without keeping us there only, he has created at the corner of the spiritual world, he has created a material world, little bit of material world, just like, prisoners, the thieves are kept in the prison, like just like that he has kept us in the prison. So how do the Lord expect us to not do sense gratification, right? Because he created in one way, there are so much of contradiction actually. One way he's creating the material world for our sense gratification, because we want to enjoy separately leaving Krishna, and we want to enjoy ourselves to satisfy our material desires, right? So this world is created. And again, he's saying that, I mean, Acharyas are saying that we have become rebellious even in the material world. Already we are become rebellious to Krishna. That is the reason why he has kept us here. And then he has put all the laws here. What is the use, Prabhu, actually? So material laws and all that we have to follow here. So when Krishna knows that we have become rebellious and we want to enjoy to the fullest of our satisfaction, to fulfill all our sense gratification, why he is giving again all the laws and all that, and why he wants us to follow the laws, given through our scriptures and all that. It's a little bit contradictory for me, Prabhu. Actually, how do Krishna expect us to follow all these things when we have no no intention to obey to the Lord's orders? How do he expect us, even after coming to the material world, when we are in the spiritual world, we are not able to follow him, basically. And when we have left him and we have come over here, just by scriptures and just by sending his representatives and all that, even though whenever once in a while, yuge, he appears, how do he expect us to follow him, Prabhu, all the rules and regulations? So could you please enlighten us, Prabhu? Thank you so much.
Hare Krishna, Mataji. Would any devotees like to address that? Jai Satchidananda Prabhu.
Sorry, my internet dropped out before, right in the middle of what you were saying. Can you say that again, Danaraja Prabhu?
Oh, would you like to address that, Radha Kun Mataji's question?
Well, you go first. I really liked your lecture. The personal nature of your lecture is very sweet. The loving nature of Lord Krishna is essentially like our mother. So I can chime in. If it's a pretty big question, this concept of anadi, and the acharyas have spoken about it and the implication of that question. I'm going to actually address that during my Sunday feast lecture to some extent. But you give it a shot first. You're very learned and you're very humble devotee.
Hare Krishna. Well, Mataji, like Jai Satchidananda Prabhu said, I'm sure that there's so many ways to address this problem, but very succinctly, I'll say that it seems to me that Krishna gives us a lot of credit. Hridayananda Maharaj once said that if we saw ourselves as Krishna sees us, we would never feel depressed again. Because remember when Krishna looked at himself, when he was cleaning the floor, when he was looking at the floors in Dwarka, and then he caught his own reflection, and he was like just like enchanted with how, he was like, who's this beautiful person? So Krishna is attractive to everyone. Krishna is even attractive to himself, and we're all parts of Krishna. Krishna, I don't know, it sounds like sacrilegious to say, but yeah, like Krishna really, really loves us. He's attracted to us too. So Krishna, he gives us a lot of credit, it seems. I would say that, because you asked the question in kind of a humorous way, so I feel like I should answer it in the same way, which is that I think he just gives us a lot of credit. You're like, yeah, how does Krishna expect us to do this? It's like, well, I can tell you from my personal experience, from my personal life, that Prabhupada once says, only an animal can't keep their promise. So I can tell you that I'm an animal. And Krishna has given me every chance not to be. And I still am. And so I think it must be just very frustrating. Imagine, like a mother, you have more experience with this than I do. I have experience at it from one end, but like, I know that I have done the thing that my mom asked me not to do so many times. Don't do that or else you're going to get hurt and cry. And I did the thing and I got hurt and I cried. She's like, okay. And then with the same patience, she told me not to do it again. And I did it again. And I don't know what it is. I don't know exactly what it is about our nature that wants to test limits. But I mean, Prabhupada says that there's different degrees of intelligence. The first degree of intelligence just hears something once and does it. The second one has to hear it, and see someone else make the mistake. And, oh, okay. And then the third intelligence, even after hearing it and having the bad experience of not following it, still does it. And so it's like, technically, it's not even intelligence. So I can tell you, I'm that third one, and I don't know. That's just the nature of Nitya Bada. That's all I have to say about that. I thought it was a very humorous question that you asked, so I think there's a humorous answer to it.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Something very wonderful I heard. May I chime in?
Please.
Something very wonderful I heard from Gauranga Prabhu when he was talking about Janmadi Ashyayataha verse, was that we're like a child and we have a father, and a child's nature, because it has some independence, is to do something outside of the home. And the father says, no, you're better staying at the home. The child says, no, I want to go play with those other kids in the baseball park or the cricket park. And the father, being very loving, says, okay, let's go. And the father stays there and the child plays. Initially, the child is very happy, but the father knows the nature of all children. And eventually the child says, okay, let's just go home. And so Gauranga Prabhu says, the glory of the Lord is that he is able to wait for infinite time, for infinite number of souls, through infinite number of universes, very patiently to have us say, okay, let's come back. I'm a little tired of this. So it's an act of love and of patience on the part of the Lord to allow us to do this. Bhagavan Krishna knows that our nature is spiritual. We're spirit. And when spirit has the propensity, not necessarily to have animosity against the Lord, in Gita it says, bhunkte. Purusha prakrtos hi bhunkte prakriti jangaram. Bhunkte means enjoying the products of the material world. That when that propensity for bhunkte occurs to enjoy, then the soul starts identifying with that which gives it that material enjoyment, which is prakriti. But Srila Prabhupada very nicely talks about in that purport that there has to be a change, and the change is to change that bhunkte propensity, that desire to enjoy. And he says that that change occurs through the process of hearing. Because hearing from devotees gives us faith in Shastra. And faith in Shastra, Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, is the engine that propels us through into devotional life. If you think of Bhaktivinoda Thakur quoting from Sri Rupa Goswami, says that when you think of Adao Shraddha, Tata Bhajan Kriya, Adao Shraddha, Tata Sadhu Sangha, Tata Bhajan Kriya, Tata Anartha Nivritti, he said these are nothing but transformations of faith. Going from what he calls Kamala Shraddha, soft faith, to Shraddhavan, deep faith. So Krishna has created, he loves us enough that he lets us go. But Mataji, I would say, Srila Prabhupada says that our supposed time in the material world seems like eternity, but in reality, in the totality of existence, and looked at from the celestial years point of view, it's actually just a blink of an eye. So Prabhupada says, when one becomes, to the point where false ego is not, because the first thing that comes into existence is false ego, and the last thing that goes out of material existence is false ego. Right? So Srila Prabhupada says that when that happens, it's like you open your eye and you see Krishna, and it felt like you never left the spiritual world. That's Srila Prabhupada's perspective. So I think the Lord Krishna did allow us to come into this material world, but he didn't send us alone, like Prabhuji said. He sent the Shruti, Shastra, Smriti, and those that have faith in that. And depending on the strength of our faith, all the distinction between the three types of devotees is based essentially on faith and Shastra. So depending on the strength of our faith depends on how we view the world. And the world can also be an instrument for, serving Krishna and remembering who we are. So I think rather than getting frustrated and saying, how does Krishna expect us to, Krishna loves us, but then he sends us into the material world. How does he expect us to come? The simplest way is to understand from Gauranga Mahaprabhu's statement that Krishna has a ton of patience. We don't, but he does. Why? Because he's so competent and he trusts that we'll make the right decisions. Chaitanya Prabhu says something very nice, that there are two types of people. There's a pure devotee and there are those who are going to become pure devotee. It's just time that separates the two. Because time can only be known through the element of Prakriti. Because time is known by change, right? If there's no change, will we notice time? No. We'll only notice time because of Prakriti. And when the conditioned soul comes out of Prakriti, then time ceases to exist. And at that point, we never left the spiritual world. Anyways, it's a very long topic, and I kind of rambled on and on. But I really appreciated the comments from the Acharyas and these other senior devotees. I'm sure I did not answer your question satisfactorily. So
No, Prabhuji, thank you so much for the wonderful explanations. No, yeah, as you said, it's sometimes frustrating how to reconnect to Krishna, because we lost our connection. Especially I lost my connection with Krishna since time immemorial. Of course, Krishna is giving us scriptures to reconnect to him, and also sending his representatives in the form of spiritual masters and previous acharyas. Scriptures are also there, but it is not easy to again reconnect to Krishna, because once upon a time we were in the spiritual world with Krishna, and at that time we lost our love for Krishna. So after coming over here, with this material world is so attractive, with many attractive things, and Krishna has put us in a condition. He's our eternal father. I'm not able to understand, he has given this material world. Why did he give, in fact, this material world for our enjoyment, why he wants to actually fulfill our desires and put us in trouble. So it's again very, very difficult to get connected to Krishna and going back to Krishna. So I just that thought came when we are reading the second paragraph. So I just asked Prabhu. Thank you so much, Prabhu. You gave a very nice answer, Prabhu. Jai Sachin Prabhu. Thank you so much, Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Hare Krishna, Danaraja Prabhu also. Thank you so much.
Hare Krishna Mataji. Thank you, Jai Sachinandana Prabhu, for that wonderful answer. It's very sweet.
Krishna.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, the Dhananjaya Das Prabhu, and very good expression. This is like Vedas Shruti as a mother and father, and Krishna is our everything. Even though the people are getting frustration, but there may be for everybody salvation is there. Maybe it takes time. That is there. Only thing is we have to obey Krishna's orders and has to faith him. That Lord is very great and he will see us always what we have to we want to know that. In my understanding, it is very wonderful explanation and very wonderful speech that is there. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Vijaya Lakshmi Mataji. Thank you.
Thank-
All glory to Srila Prabhupada.
Yeah, everything is going to Srila Prabhupada.
Yeah.
Okay, so Danaraj Prabhu, you've become a stranger. We don't get the benefit of seeing you. I know you're very busy with your services at the Bhakti Center, but do consider coming by and giving us some association. I'm happy to see that you're in, you're enjoying the nectar of Krishna consciousness, and you're appreciating the Shastra and the devotees and serving the devotees so nicely. Thank you very much.
All thanks to you, Prabhuji. It would be my benefit. It would be only to my benefit to get your association. I'll do my best.
Yes, I know it's hard to be in 2 places or 3 places at the same time. So thank you. Thank you all, dear devotees, for joining. We don't get to hear Danaraj Prabhu often or see him often, so it's a special treat, especially on Mother's Day. I still remember when Danaraj Prabhu gave his first lecture, and we were also touched when he talked about how his mother would wake him up in the morning by rubbing his chest and saying, wake up, very gently. You can see your gentle nature just that comment. Krishna's like that, yes? He's rubbing our chest and saying, come on, I'm here for you. And like Gauranga Prabhu said, he's like that person, patient, the father patiently waiting at the ballpark for the kid to come back. So, because he has belief in our ability. He's not doubting us, like Danaraj Prabhu says. Okay, so please come to temple, open between 11:30 to 2:30. And next week, if you can, please come for Nrsimha